Welcome back to this Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. I'm Mackenzie Frost. A judge has decided PSEG can go onto private property to conduct surveys for the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. Fox 45 News has talked with sheriffs in the impacted counties who have said they will stand with their people when it comes to enforcing the order.
It's a civil order to go on to their property. I'm not getting involved in a civil order between the courts, Piedmont, and landowners. But I will stand with the landowners in this county and resist this project every single step of the way till the bitter end.
Joining me now is the president of the group Stop MPRP, Joanne Frederick, and impacted homeowner Mark Ferris. Thank you both for joining us. I appreciate your time. Now, let's start with Joanne. I understand that obviously you have been on the ground level of this from the very beginning. It has been a year at this point now since you have first learned about this project and have been working to fight against this project. First, let's talk about the lawsuit that you have been involved in, and I understand that an appeal has been filed to try and stop these surveys from going forward. Can you talk a little bit about where that stands and why you believe that's important to continue to fight?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did file an appeal with the Fourth Circuit last night, and that scheduling or that appeal order is online, and folks can take a look at that. The importance is really twofold. One, it's the precedent that this sets, and what the ruling that the district court came to essentially means that in the future, not only for the MPRP, but if there are other transmission lines in the future, the developer could use this ruling to then say, well, we're going to get access to your land even though the project hasn't yet been approved through the PSC. So I call it a flawed decision, and it doesn't follow the process that the state has laid out, and I think that's important. To be clear, none of the landowners wanted to be in this situation in the first place. I am one of them. Certainly don't want to continue the significant expense and just the uncertainty and heartache of this whole process. But we cannot allow this to stand because really of what it means in the future. And it is a slippery slope to allow eminent domain for projects that benefit private companies. And we can't let that stand.
Now, Mark, you live in one of these, in a property that would be impacted by this proposed transmission line, correct?
Correct. They came up with 10 initial routes.
Right.
Through my area, there were 2. They selected one that is less than a quarter mile from my family farm. The original route, a potential route, would have cut my farm in half. Fortunately, it's moved down, so it will not, at this time, cross my land, but it clearly ruins the view shed. And furthermore, I live in a rural community, and so I have, while I didn't get the burden of the transmission line, I have many, many people that come to me because they know I'm involved in this and ask what can I do, and they're impacted. I mean, I can give you story after story of people that are impacted negatively, and it's wrong. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Looking at where we just heard from the chair of the PSC talk a little bit about the process of the application, and it's twofold, whether it's, is this transmission line necessary in the first place? That's one route. And then if it is, where would it go? When it comes to where would it go, that's where the surveys really come into play. But do you believe that everything should be halted until the litigation it plays out and you guys have a resolution as to, this appeal, and you have an answer about whether these surveys will move forward? I
think that's the reason, that the decision came to file the appeal. Again, it's incredibly expensive and it is a distraction. However, it is, as we heard Chair Hoover say, is this line needed at all? And should we determine whether that is true or not before we use the threat of blackouts and brownouts to rush our way through to do surveys on private land? So on one hand, it's hurry, 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 and on the other hand, we're hurrying, on the backs of the people that are having to compromise their rights and their property, access to their property, et cetera. And it seems it is unfair and unjust, and that's why we're standing up and continue to stand up and say, no, this isn't right. The process is not being followed correctly, and if we need to stand in the way, we're going to continue to stand in the way.
To follow up on that, As I said, I was not named in the lawsuit that was filed in federal court, but in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I've had 2 survey teams on my property with no advance notice, no knowledge of them being there. The first one, I drove down my farm lane, found a black SUV with survey equipment, the back was locked. I said, please come out, you're trespassing. And then I drove up my farm lane because they didn't come out. By the time I got back from a half-mile drive, which is a very short time frame, they had gone. Last week, no, 2 weeks ago, I was baling my hay, and I came over a hill, and out from the woods came 2 surveyors with equipment, with vests. They had to cross a creek, go through 150 feet of woods, and they landed up, ironically, right when I came over the hill. And I said, you're trespassing. They did have badges on. They told me the neighbor said it would be okay, they could do that. And I said, well, that's not okay with me, and I own this land. So I think the aggressive nature of this company that's trying to develop this is over the top. It's not acceptable, and it's quite frankly not right for the people of Maryland.
So the surveys were on your property?
2 teams of surveyors have been on my property in the last 30 days. I had no knowledge of them coming, and and it was not contentious. The first group just disappeared. The second group, I said, you're trespassing, please leave, and they did. And that's the way it should be handled. It shouldn't be, a big frictional intervention, but they should respect. But the fact is, they should not be there to begin with.
And in the court order, it said they're supposed to give 24 hours notice. Now, is that only for the people who are involved in the lawsuit?
That's correct.
So people like you, Mark, who are not named in the lawsuit, they could just show up?
Well, they can show up, but they should not show up.
Legally, they don't have to give 20.
They have no rights at all to show up on my property or anybody else's property that's not named in the suit. If it's on property that is named in the suit, then they have requirements and notice, and so they should follow the rules.
Do you believe that that's how this process has been this entire time, though, from from a year ago when these community meetings started to pop up in Frederick and Carroll and Baltimore counties?
We hear one thing. We want to work with the community, work with the landowners, and please contact your land agent so we can have an open dialogue. And yet, I wrote to my land agent. I got the letter, and I sent an email to the land agent assigned to me last Monday morning, and I still have not heard anything. So here we are 8 days later, and so it's this mixed message. We want to work with you, we want to cooperate, we're in a big hurry, and 8 days go by, and I get no response from my email to say, my email was, please give me the information on the survey you wish to conduct on my property, and I've not heard anything yet. So that's part of it, Mackenzie, is, we feel like we're, constantly trying to get to the ground truth here. And it is unfair that Marylanders, for a project that will not benefit Marylanders, have to chase a for-profit public corporation to get the truth out of them. And that's a terrible burden on the folks across Maryland. You saw Raina Gover. I get phone calls from upset landowners frequently and emails from upset landowners frequently who feel very threatened by this. And we just, we continue to hold the line, but it's not just, it's not right.
Looking at how this whole process has played out, Mark, did you ever imagine you would find yourself in the middle of something like this?
No, I didn't. I'm a retired telecom executive. I've been retired for 7 years. I've built many projects like this, as size, scope, scale. In my corporate experience or my whatever, I never conducted my business the way these people have done their business. When I retired, I hung up my sport coat, which I dusted off tonight to wear, and I thought I'm done. And then I saw Joanne post something on Facebook looking for a board member, and I said, sign me up. I've got some experience, and I will not have my family farm, my lifelong dream, damaged by somebody with a poorly planned project that's questionably needed, that no alternatives were considered, and it has been grossly mismanaged by the developer. So I said, sign me up, and I'm in for the fight, and I will represent my neighbors and our group to say, there's a better way to do this, and the way you're doing it is not right.
Now, there's been a lot of conversation about whether Maryland will actually see any benefit from this transmission line if and when it is built. if there was a guarantee that Marylanders would see the benefit of the additional power that it would bring into the state, would you be more willing to allow it to come into your neighborhood or your community and impact your view shed or cross your property?
To be honest with you, first off, they have to prove the need, which they've not done after numerous requests. Secondly, they have not come up with any alternatives. So before I could say yes or no to that question, I need them to prove the need, and they need to show me the alternative they considered and why they were discounted. For instance, reconductoring existing power lines, laying your line on right-of-way along a highway, looking at alternative energy sources. In the case of data centers, which is truly driving this, why not come up with a concept and approve BYOP, bring your own power? You want to build a data center, bring your own power and reduce the need on the grid. So there's many questions, and it's not just simplistic saying, again, it goes back to the point.
Sure.
Prove the need.
Joanne, how would you feel?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And we know, right, according to the Market Monitor, 93% of the demand in PJM is related to data centers. And were it not for data centers, we wouldn't need all the infrastructure. So we keep pointing to the source of the problem, and yet we kind of close our eyes to the source of the problem and say, well, transmission is the solution here. And I think, the NERC report that came out in June points out the faults of transmission. Highly susceptible to weather, and goodness knows we've had weather here for the last couple of weeks, and the power goes out frequently. So why are we continuing to invest our time and hard-earned money and heartache in solutions that truly aren't reliable to add more overhead transmission to the grid? Is it not time that people across the entire country really deserve a energy solution for the next century and beyond that is underground, that is more reliable, that is perhaps high voltage direct current? All of those pieces, that the technology is here, we have the solutions. We just need someone with the courage to stand up and say, we're going to build for the future. We're not going to build for the past.
All right, hold that thought, because when we come back, I want to ask you about a meeting that you recently had with the Governor Westmore's team. Stay with us. We'll continue this conversation right after the break.